One other thing to note inside the shelf, so if you are not sure what that actually object is going to do, you can actually just kind of roll over, and in the bottom left you can actually see polygon sphere. It will create a polygon sphere on the grid, and then also if you hang over it long enough, this little yellow piece underneath also basically telling you the same thing as what's down here in the display preview of like what that object, what that actually does. So this is a bevel. So everything is all kind of up here in the shelf like right away. So you don't have to actually go up here and find bevel. Or if you want to use the hotkey, you can, right? So if I just go to edge mode and double click, I get that edge loop selection. So if I hold down Control B, that's going to just do my bevel right away. And this is where I can actually change that bevel and add segments if I need to. And you can turn chamfer on and off as well. So you see like right here when I turn that chamfer on and off what that actually does. So, and once you do that, you can see, and it's kind of the same thing. So if I do that here and I go to bevel, again, same thing. This is where all that stuff lives. So there's just many ways to use Maya and customize it how you like to work. So just be aware of that. But if you ever find something like, where is this located? This, you can check the shelf. If not, check the menu, and then also the help and find menu. Okay, like you can actually look for, say, joints. So now I can actually go through here and I can see, okay, skeleton create joints, skeleton insert joints. I can mirror joints. So usually you can just enter in like what you're looking for. So say render, all my different how to do something. So there's Arnold panel, like how do I save panels, or how do I get to panels, blah blah blah. So that's how you get to that. Just so many different ways to do things inside Maya. So I'm just hitting F8 to get back to object mode, and so you'll see that those bevels actually softened that sphere out there a little better. So in looking to the left-hand side of the menu system, so this is our select tool, and also if you hold down Q gives you the selection tool. If you hold down Q and then left click, so keep the Q button held down and left click, now you can get to a different marking menu. So this will actually give you different selections. So you can clear your selection, soft selections, and then so say if I don't want anything at all, I just release right back on that button. So this gives you the lasso tool, which is actually pretty cool. And if I want if I want to select in symmetry, that actually gives you that. So soft select by object. So if I select, so soft select mode is on, and so this, if I had multiple things, it would just be a soft selection there. So this is going to be select lasso, which I find, so I usually stay in this mode, and then if I do want to use the lasso to choose something lasso-wise, I think the easier way to get to that is by holding Q and then dragging to the right. You get that lasso tool right there. And then if you hold down, if you hit Q again, it goes back to regular selection. So I use that fairly often. The paint select tool is actually, you can actually paint. So say if I want to select verts, I can actually paint vertices that way by just being on the paint select tool. So I just hit Q and then back to object mode. And then so this is going to be my move tool, so which is the hotkey is W, and that gives us that manipulator. And you can see obviously we're Y up and then Z forward and X is going to be to the right and left. So if I'm looking, would be Z forward, Z positive forward, and then X positive is to the right, and then Y up is positive, Y down is negative. So one thing to be aware of in 3D space, so if you are on the positive side of X, it's going to always show up as positive number. If you say want to be on the other side, if you just throw a minus and be negative, it puts it on the other. So be aware of that. Like if you are going to do just like a simple, you want to have two of these, right? If you duplicate this guy, you can actually duplicate special and actually put it right exactly because you have the exact, so if I did a duplicate and just put in a negative on this, it's going to place the two together. So, like so. Alright, so just going over our move, rotate, and scale options on the left-hand panel side. So with this, we have the W key for move, E is for rotate, and R for scale. And then each individual on the manipulator, whether you're in move, rotate not so much, but scale, move and scale, you'll see these three little squares. And so all that means is if you move the blue one, it's going to move in X and Y. And if you use the red box, this is going to translate in Y and Z. And then the green one is going to basically just lock out the Y, and then so all you move is in X and Z. So basically when you use these, you're just basically eliminating that from the movement, or scale for that matter. Both, it works the same way for both. And then if you want to stay in a plane, if you just click on the axis that you want to stay in and then middle mouse drag, you'll stay in, say, Z, or if you select Y and move in Y, and I'm just middle mouse dragging right here, selecting with the left and then middle mouse drag, and then that'll basically stay in that plane. To get to the options, say I rotate and in X, so let's say I rotate in X, and also the J key, J is a hotkey, J is a snapping. J snaps in 5, or no, it's not 5, 15% increments, and I believe that you can change that. But if you hold down the J key, say I rotate in 45 degrees, and then now I'm currently in world space, but I want to be in local. Say I want to move along the local space of the object. So to do that, if I hold down the W key and left mouse click, you'll get this marking menu, and then you can just select object. That puts us in to local space and no longer in world space. This is pretty handy. And then also in here, there's also component modes as well. So say I go here, and now I'm moving along the face. So I'm in component mode, and it actually stays in that mode. So that's also pretty handy. If I was to go into the vertex as well, this goes along the vertex. I think it's along the normal. It's pretty sure that it's along the normal. So pretty handy, pretty cool little tool. So I'm just going to Control Z back to my original. All right. So, and all the manipulation, so move, scale, and rotate. If you hold down, so move, it's hold down W and left click, and you can get all different. You can also go along the normals. There's just a lot of options. And then there's also, if you want to go back and just reset, you can just go back to the options and reset the tool, and then it goes back to normal. So if you hold down E, this is what you get for your rotation tools or your rotation menu. So say you want to just rotate in world, that's how you do that. Or also in object mode as well. Scale as well. You have you can snap scale, just a lot of different options that you have available to you. So for this, I'm just going to go back and reset my tool and also reset the tool. You can also double click, like I said, over here, and that will just reset all those tools back to normal. Also down here, this is basically last tool used. So if say I just used the snap, but say like I want to add an edge loop in here, and so if I go to edge mode, which is F10, and then go to my marking menu by holding shift and right click and say edge loop, insert edge loop tool, and then I insert an edge loop here, and then I go back and out of that tool, you'll see that it stays here. This is last tool used. So say I clicked off of here and I want to actually use that tool again. All I have to do is hit the G key, and that will give me that last used tool. So I can come back here and start using that edge loop tool again. It's actually pretty handy. So that's how you use the last tool selected. Really useful. I use it fairly often, especially when rigging and just anything that you use a lot of. Right now I'm just Control-Zing just to go back to where I was at. And then, so now we will go over the viewport and what these all kind of what all these mean. So, okay, we're going to move forward with viewport information. So, what our menus are in the viewports are view, shading, lighting, show, renderer, and panels. And in the view section of the menu, this is all based around the camera. And so most of our options, like if we want to select the camera, which gives us our attributes for that camera, that's how you get to, or you can actually manually select them in the outliner as well. If your camera isn't in the outliner and you want to actually make sure you have it in there, if you go to spacebar and then click spacebar and left mouse button will bring up the marking menu again for, say you want the back view. And now back view will show up in your outliner, and from there you can, if you want to use that. Okay, so when you hit spacebar, also it goes to your last. I think I had 2 panels up last, so I think if I do that, if I go to 4 panel and do that, you can also just spacebar to go to the one that you want if you're in a 4 panel mode. So perspective, top, front, and I'm just tapping on the spacebar. So moving forward with view, you can also actually lock your camera, which basically won't let you do anything. So if there's a view that you prefer and you want to just stay there, you can basically lock it. To unlock, you can just, so these buttons are basically kind of the same thing. So with that, these parts are in the view menu, and then these are actual camera settings. This next selection, this next set. So like the grid, this is where you can do film gate, resolution gate, also different filled charts and save actions and save titles. This next group of buttons or little icons right here are all based on the shading. So shading is right here, and this is all just basically how you want to view the mesh. Okay, so if you want to see wireframe unshaded, it's Alt 5, or you can just hit this button right here. And this this wireframe unshaded. You can see down here what these actually do. This is lighting mode. So this hotkey is 7. So 4 being wireframe, 5 being just a shaded view, 6 will show shaded view with your texture map or material, and then 7 being lighting. Okay, so I'm just going to hit 5 again just to go back to shaded view. So you can see those here as well. And then this turns on shadows. This is our screen space ambient occlusion, which is basically in the Viewport 2.0 options. And so to get to that, you can go here, and then if you scroll down, you can see screen space ambient occlusion. If you want to enable that, that's how you can do that. You can also do that here. There's motion blur. That's also in the same area of Viewport 2.0. And also there's some isolate selection, which isolate selection is Control 1. Control 1 will actually put that in isolate selection. So say I want all these faces. If I double click, select this one first, and then double click here, selects my loop. And if I say Control 1, that shows just it just shows what I want to work on currently, or however you want to set that up. You can also say select inverse, Control Shift I, and that will select that, and say Control 1, and then that will actually give you the opposite if that's what you want to do. There's some really nice tools in Maya, pretty fast to get to with hotkeys, but isolate select is right there, and then that's also here under show, isolate selected, and then you can just, but Control 1 is the hotkey for that. You can also bookmark current selections and objects. It's pretty handy. Under shading, I think, yeah, we went through majority of all this. X-ray and X-ray joints is when you kind of want to see through an object. So you can still see, so if I go to object mode, F8, and X-ray just lets you see through the object, and it's no longer opaque. If you have X-ray turned off, if you have a joint inside, so if I go rigging, skeleton, create joints, and just place one down, since the object is opaque, we can't really see through, see the joint actually. So one way you can go about doing that is to turn on X-ray joints, and then now you can actually, the object is still opaque, but you can see the joints. You can also turn on X-ray to see through the mesh if you prefer to do that. But using the X-ray joints is still, it's nice to be able to see your joints when you're placing them in an opaque mesh. So I'm just going to select this joint and delete, get rid of my back view as well. And so here with lighting, like I said, you can, 7 is show lighting mode. and then use selected lights. So if you have like just like 2 lights that you want to see, you can say use selected lights. Just some other lighting options. The show menu with isolate select, I showed that. You can show all or show none. If you say show none, basically you can't see anything anymore. So anything in this menu, NURBS, controllers, joints, image planes, cameras, anything like, well, cameras you can obviously still see, but if you have any of these items in the scene, so yeah, cameras, it does turn cameras off as well. So so if you want to come back to that, you can just say all. Actually, I don't know why that joint came back. I think I might have hit G. Actually, I just left clicked, so I'm just going to go out of that just to go back to, I hit Q just to go back to selection mode. And so show, this is where you can also turn the grid off, but you can also do that here under display. So if you bring the grid back and then renderer, so Viewport 2.0, this is where you can actually set these items, and like anti-aliasing, motion blur, these are in the viewport. So if I turn on ambient occlusion, you can kind of see it. It's not really, it's you can kind of see the shading going on underneath here. But if I was to, let's move this up, and we'll just put a plane. So create polygon primitive, plane, and then I'm just going to hit R and middle mouse drag. So you can see right here there's some shadowing going on. It's not actually touching. So with that touching, you can actually see the ambient occlusion built into the viewport. It's pretty cool little feature. So if I turn that off, you'll see that it goes away. No longer have the ambient occlusion locked in. And then that's where you turn on motion blur as well. If you want to see motion blur in the scene, that's how you see that. That's just by turning it on, by enabling. And then you can also affect the shutter open to see how that works. Under renderer, so if you want to look at Arnold, if you want to see an Arnold view, you can actually come to Arnold, but also under the Arnold menu, you can actually open an Arnold render view. And so if I hit play right now, we're actually not going to see anything because there's no lights in the scene, and Arnold needs lighting. So if I go to Arnold lights and just throw in, say, a sky dome light, just a basic one, we can now see our what we're seeing in Arnold. And this is actually a live interactive preview render. And so to turn that off, you just hit stop. But if I hit play here and I continue to zoom around, you'll see that it's interactive. So interactive photo preview is or interactive photorealistic render, I believe IPR is. So yeah, if you just stop that, and then you can close that. And currently with the sky dome light, I just will delete that. Don't really need that right now as I'm just going through here. So panels, this is where we can get to our other windows. We can create a new perspective window, and then we can also create stereo cameras, orthographic different cameras, or this is how we can get to them. So if we want front view, or I prefer to actually just go through here, but sometimes I'll use multiple perspective views. So I'll just throw in 2 because maybe I want to see something a little different. Or I'll lock one that I'm kind of looking at, almost use it as a camera. And then that way I can jump back and forth between the perspective views. So, and that's just by just going perspective 1, perspective 2. So that's how that works. Under here, you can also look through selected. So say you place something that you like, and if you go look through selected, this is basically selects the camera and shows what you're seeing through that camera. So, and then you can also create a new camera from that view. If you find a view that you really like, that's how you can create a new camera. All right, so going through this list again, this is where we can get to our different panels. So if we're going to our dope sheet, graph editor, hypershade, outliner, even though we have the outliner right here, you can place another outliner if you really need to or want to. I don't know why you would have two. I'm sure there's reasons people use that, but also you can create a UV editor panel, anything like that, but also hypergraphs, scene hierarchies, and with the layouts you can actually, so you can do 3 panes, split bottom, so that'll actually build out your windows, and then here's where you would come in and say I want to do, let's see, panel. Say I want to put the UV editor here and put, let's say, the hypershade window. And so this is how that would look. And then you can also, I think because this window is it needs quite a bit of real estate, and so that's how that works. So I'm just going to go back to Maya Classic, reset my current workspace. Okay, so now I'm back to normal panel view of how I want. I could also just go to layout single pane, and then it would go back to perspective. So you can also tear off windows, and so you'll see that window actually goes away. So it actually tears it off completely. Actually, if I'm just going to reset my workspace, and so you can also tear off a copy. So this actually lets you, so sometimes I'll put this on like a second monitor, and from here you can actually scale this down however you want it. But then you can also go to, because we tore this panel off, usually what I'll do is, so I'll create like, or go to perspective 1, say, and then I'll tear off a copy, and then I'll place this guy on my second monitor to actually view, and then I'll just come back here, and then now I can actually work and then have this on my second monitor, but that's how you get an additional perspective view or a camera view, how you want to see them. And then this is just kind of a panel editor, how you can actually set up your own panels and layouts as well. And over here, I think I missed, this was X-ray vision on the X-ray joints, which is all through here, shading. So these are just like fast options to get to those items, like the shelf buttons. And this is a, I believe this is, yeah, exposure. This one is the gamma to bump up the contrast or brightness. And then this right here, you can set to raw, or I think it defaults at sRGB gamma, which is a view transform. So sometimes if your renders turn out a different color or different way, you can actually set that in the render view or in the render settings. And that is, so you basically, the color space, if you use the output transform, that's going to be from whatever view that you're in. So if I set this to sRGB gamma, if I set this to raw, say, and that's going to be raw color, that's going to be my output transform. Okay, you can also, so if I use the output transform and just go RGB gamma, I can also say raw here, and that will shoot out just a raw image, a raw color image from the render setting.